everyone, it's Rebecca from Chloe's Creative Cards, and today I'm going to show you how to make this lovely Christmassy wintry scene Christmas card. So this one's on a 7x7 card, so a little bit smaller, so perfect if you're kind of posting them at Christmas and things. So I'm going to take a 7x7 card blank, and then I've taken a piece of patterned paper from the paper pad and trimmed that down to 6 3/4 inches square. And then I'm going to edge this one with some Crystallina glitter. So I'm just going to grab in some scrap paper. And then I'm going to grab in my chisel tip glue pen as well. And then I'm just carefully going to drag that glue towards me. So button up to the edge of the piece of paper and dragging it down the side. Like so on all 4 sides. And then I'm going to grab my Crystallina glitter and I'm going to I'm just going to tip on some of that glitter just so we get a lovely glittery edge. It just gives the idea of kind of another matten layer and makes it super sparkly as well. There we go. Paper. Okay, and then I'm going to stick that onto a card blank. So I'm just going to use some Collal all-purpose glue. And just get rid of that bit off the top. Okay, and I'm just going to apply a little bit of this to the back. Like so. And I'm going to stick that down onto my card. Okay, I've then cut a piece of Jupiter pearl card and I've trimmed that one down to 7 1/2 inches square. And I'm going to stick that one on using some foam pads, just to give it a little bit of dimension. I've then got a piece of Kraft card and I'm going to stick that one on using some foam pads again. Like so, and then I'll just peel off the backs of those. Stick that one down. I've then trimmed a piece of the patterned paper again, and I've chosen this gingerbread design. So I'm going to stick that one down, but I'm going to stick that one flat this time. Again, you could stick all of these layers flat, especially if you're posting. You know, it would still look just as nice. But I like a little bit of dimension to my cards. I'm just going to stick that one on there. I've then taken a piece of white pearl card, so our crystal white pearl card, and then I'm going to edge this one in Crystallina glitter as well. I think I've trimmed this one to 6 inches. I'll just check for you. I'll just use my guillotine and just check. Sorry, 5 1/2 inches square this piece. So I'm going to edge. I'm just going to grab in my scrap paper again, and I'm just going to edge that with the chisel tip glue pen again. Like so, all the way around, and then I'm going to dunk it into my glitter, like so. There we go. And I'm going to stick that one onto the card using some foam pads again. Again, you could still do this and stick it flat. It's not a problem. Like so. Just peel off those backs. Get rid of those. Okay. Stick that one onto there. I've then taken a piece of crystal white pearl card. Again, the width is still the same as the last piece, which is 5.5 inches wide. And then I'm just going to tear a little hill. So nothing fancy, just ripping the card across, and it just gives that little jagged edge. Okay. And I'm going to stick that one on to the base of the card. And I'm going to use some foam pads again. I feel like I'm using lots of foam pads in this demo. But we like a lot of dimension to our cards. I'm going to stick that one, just putting it right up to the edge of the other piece, like so. And that just starts to build our scene on the card. Okay. And then going to take some of our dry clear glue, PVA glue. And I'm just going to grab in a bit of scrap paper as well, so that it doesn't go everywhere. And all I'm going to do is just kind of scribble across this snow layer, just scribbling across like so. Okay. Then I'm going to take our Winter Wonderland Sparkelicious glitter. I love this one for the snow effects on the bottom. Just think it looks so beautiful and so sparkly. I've just sprinkled that across, tapped off the excess, and you can see we've kind of got a little bit of snow look on the bottom there. Okay. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to build up our trees, our lovely snowy tree, okay, to give them that 3D effect. So I'm going to take some white card. This is just a plain white card. And I'm going to bring in my snowy tree stamps. And as you can see, these ones have been very well used, okay? But again, that staining of the ink pad really doesn't affect the image at all. So I'm just going to ink up this stamp using a Versafine black Onyx ink pad. So just like so, lots of light tapping, make sure it's coated in that ink. And then I'm going to stamp that out onto our white card. Like so. Okay, and then we've got our lovely winter tree. Okay, so I'm then going to cover this in clear gloss wow powder. Just then we've got a lovely ridge to work up to where I'm colouring in. It just helps not to go out of the lines a little bit better. I'm going to heat that up. Again, just waiting for that powder to melt and change and moving that heat gun across the image. Okay, now we've got that heated up, I'm going to grab in the coordinating dies that you also get in the set. Now to create these, the 3D trees, you would need to stamp out 2 of each tree, okay? But I have already got some of this pre-prepped just so that it was dry, okay? So I'm just going to stamp out the one to show you today. But if you are creating those dimensional trees, you will need to stamp out 2 of each. Okay, so I'm just going to tape them down. Just going to grab in a little bit of extra tape just to make sure that they don't move when they go in my die cutting machine, like so. Take my Gemini cutting plate. So I've got my clear plate, my plastic shim, and then going to put my trees facing up, my cardstock, and then another clear cutting plate. I'm just going to run that through my machine. Just wait for that to come out the other side. can see we've got those lovely trees all die cut ready for us. Okay. So to colour these in, I have used 3 different green colours. So I have used BG96, I've then used YG63, and I've used G21. Okay, and this just adds a little bit of shading to those trees. So I'm going to take the darkest colour, which is BG96, and I'm just going to start at the top. So I'm going to do a couple of sections at once because they're quite small. So I'm just going to apply that sort of underneath where the other layer is overlapping, like so. I'm going to take the next colour, YG63, and I'm just going to go over that colour and blend it down a little bit further. Over that colour, blending it down a little bit further to create that blend. Sometimes I might go over it a couple of times just to make sure that that blend is seamless. Then I'm going to go in with my lightest colour, which is G21, and again just up and over that colour, but also colouring in that final part of that section. Just blend it all together. Then I'm going to go back in with my darkest colour, BG96, and again just do the same for the remaining sections. Like so. Then with the next colour, YG63, again up and over that colour, but dragging it down a little bit further. Like so. Just kind of doing circular motions just to get those lines to blend together. And then in with my lightest colour, G21. Like so. I'm not too worried about going into the next section because I'm going to colour over that anyway. Then again, back in with my darkest colour. And just under those little overlapping bits. Next colour, YG63. Again, up and over. Like so. You can see how just going over it a second time just helps that line to blend and fade into the next colour. And then in with my lightest colour again, just to finish off that section. There we go. And that would be your finished coloured in tree. So do that 4 times. So 2 for the large and 2 of the small, both coloured in exactly the same. And then what I then did, excuse me, is I then cut out the tree. So I'm carefully going to show you. So this one I have cut out with our die cutting machine, but all I did was I then went closer to the line. So I'm going to cut on the black lines and cut that all the way around. Like so. Cut it all the way around. Basically just trimming off that small white border. So I'd leave one cut out with the die. That's going to be my base tree. And this one's going to create the sections of the tree. So if I bring in this one, so I've got one that's fully coloured in, cut out with the die. Okay, and then this one's going to create the sections on my tree. This is going to make it look 3D. So again, just trimming around those pieces. Like so. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to section off the tree. So I'm going to start by trimming away 2 sections at a time. Okay. So I'm going to trim in here. So again, just cutting up to that black line, just to cut away that section. Like so. That's our first section. So if I lay that over, you can see that that's those 2 sections on the tree. And I'm going to do the same. So 1, 2, and I'm going to cut in here. Like so, and you can see that that's the next 2 sections on our tree. Then I'm going to cut in again, 1, 2, and I'm going to cut in here. Next section, and I'm going to cut 2 again, so 1, 2, and I'm going to cut in here, and then that leaves us with 3 little sections at the top, which I'm quite happy with. Okay, like so. Okay, then what I did was I took each section. I'm going to take the largest one first, and I took my dry clear glue and I just scribbled a little bit of glue onto there. So like so, just like that. I'm just going to scribble a little bit of glue onto there, and I'm going to cover it with Mint Crisp Sparkelicious, like so. And I'm going to do that to all of the sections. So just scribble a little bit of glue, cover in Mint Crisp, and set aside. Scribble a little bit of glue, cover in Mint Crisp, and set to the side. The same for this one. And the same for the last piece. Like so. Okay, I'm going to tip this back into my pot. Okay. Then I took each section again and I used some fluffy stuff. So I'm going to just apply the fluffy stuff to the bottom of that piece. So I'm just going to carefully add a little rim of fluffy stuff. Okay. And then I'm going to cover this in Winter Wonderland Sparkelicious glitter. So just being careful, because obviously we've just put that green glitter on, it's a bit wet. And you can just see it adds that snowy layer. So again, I'm going to do that to each piece. Just being careful because that green glitter is still wet. So again, just a little border, and then I'm going to tip it in the Winter Wonderland glitter. Again. Go. And again. And then finally, for this piece, I'm going to again do the same, applying it at the bottom, but then I'm also going to cover the top piece as well. So this whole top section of the tree, where the snow would have fallen on the tip, I'm going to cover that in snow as well. Okay, I'm going to set those aside. Okay, now the fluffy stuff does take quite a long time to dry when you're not heating it. And it is another form of adhesive, so it will work. It'll just take, probably best to leave them overnight. So I'm just going to move these to the side because I have got some that are dry, and then it just saves making a right mess. So I'll just move these across to the side. I'll just clean. Just clean that little bit off my mat, like so. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the ones that is already dried, and they're exactly the same as we've just done, but that fluffy stuff has now dried. Okay, so we've got all of those sections. I'm going to bring in my tree, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some 3D glue gel, and I'm going to take the largest section and I'm going to add a blob at the top, like so, a decent sized blob. And I'm going to pop that onto my tree, and I'm going to squish it down a little bit at the top, making sure that the bottom is still raised. Okay, and then I'm going to take the next section, do the same, add a blob, squish it down at the top, but keeping it lifted at the bottom. Take the next section again, oh, is that the right one? Or is it that one? No, it's this one. So again, just squishing it down at the top, there we go. Take the next section, again, blob of glue, squish it at the top, leaving the bottom bit raised, and the last section, just going to add a little blob of glue, and again, squish it at the top, keeping the bottom right raised. And then that would make your dimensional snowy tree. Okay, obviously when all of that glue dries, they won't move around or anything, but that would be your dimensional tree that's ready to go onto our cards. So I've done the same, exactly the same, but in the small tree. Okay, so we're now going to get these stuck onto our cards. So for the large tree, I'm just going to apply some foam pads to the back. I'm going to have to be very careful because it is wet. I would suggest doing a batch of these and kind of leaving them all to dry, and then coming back to them once they're dry and sticking them all onto your cards. And that way you know that it's not going to move around, you're not going to get all glued up and things, and it's going to be perfect. Okay, so I'm just sticking some foam pads onto the back of there, like so. And then this one I'm going to tuck in. So I'm going to have to squash that bottom layer down a little bit so that it fits underneath my snow. Like so. I'm going to stick that one down there. Again, just carefully. Just going to move that up. Like so. Okay, and then my smaller tree, I'm going to add some 3D glue gel to the back. So I'm going to add a little blob to the bottom, and then I'm going to add quite a big blob to the top. Like so. Okay. Then to decorate the trees, I have added lots of our lovely little candies. So just get rid of that, and then we'll just tip out some of our candies. I've used lots of the little tiny gingerbread men and the little tiny red and white sweets. So I'm just going to add some PVA glue all onto the trees. And just stick on some of these sweeties. Like so. So again, wherever you'd like to put them, kind of just alternated gingerbread man and a sweetie. like so. And again for the other tree, just adding on those little gingerbread men and those little sweeties. Oh, I think I put him on upside down. There we go. Obviously this PVA glue will dry clear, so you won't see any of that them blobs of glue underneath. So again, just sticking those on. You can put as many on as few as you like. I'm just going to add one down here. So. Okay, and then you can see that those trees are beautifully all jazzed up, all looking perfect. So I'm just going to get rid of these candies back into the packet. Okay. Then we're going to create our lovely gingerbread girl. Okay, but before we do that, what I'm going to do is just add a few little dots into the background. Okay, so I'm just going to add some tiny little dots all around the trees, just to make it look a little bit snowy. Okay, and then I'm going to cover that with some Crystallina Sparkelicious. There we go, and it just gives a little look of snow. We are going to add some stars later, but I'll do that after we've made our gingerbread girl. Okay, so to do our gingerbread girl, what we're going to do is we're going to take the gingerbread stamp and we're going to stamp that onto some white card again. So I'm just going to bring in my sheet that I was using before. Okay, and then I'm going to ink her up in the Onyx black ink pad again. I can just show she's got a good coating of ink on there. And then I'm going to stamp her out onto the piece of card. And then I'm going to cover with clear gloss wow powder again, like so. And I'm going to heat that up. So again, just waiting for the powder to melt and change, and then moving that heat gun over. And then we're going to carefully cut out the gingerbread girl. I'm just going to grab in my die. There we go. And I'm just going to add some low tack tape to that again, just to make sure that it doesn't move in the die cutting machine. Like so. And then I'm grabbing my plates again. So my clear plate, plastic shim, then I'm going to put her in facing up on the cardstock and my clear plate on top and run that through my Gemini. And just catch that to the side. And then we've got her all cut out. Okay. Then I'm going to colour her in. So I'm going to use a few different colours. So I'm going to use some reds for her dress and the gingerbread colours to colour her body in. So I'm going to use E35, E33 and then E31 to colour her in. So I'm going to use the darkest colour, which is E35. And I'm just kind of going to go around up under her bow, like so. And then round the side of her face. And I'm going to take E33 and again just go up to that colour but bring it down a little bit further. Like so. And then back in with E31 to blend that all together. Like so. I'm going to do her little hands. So again with E35 first. Then E33. Oh, I think I picked the wrong one. I have. E33. And then E31. Back in with E35. So I'm going to do her little feet and her legs. E33. And E31. Back in with E35. E33. And E31. Okay. Then I'm going to take E35 again and I'm just going to go around this little edge and colour that in all the way around. Like so. Okay, and then that's our gingerbread part coloured in. So I'm now going to colour in her dress and her bow. So I'm going to use some reds. So I'm going to use R29, R27 and R22. So I'm going to take my darkest colour, which is R29. I'm going to do a sleeve first. So again, I'm going to apply that kind of under where her arm goes and down the side. I'm going to go in with R27. Don't drop the pens. R27, and again just blending up to that colour but blending it down a bit further. Then I'm going to go in with R22 and just blend that together. I'm going to take R29 again and I'm going to do the other sleeve. And then R27, blending that out a bit further. And then R22. I'm going to do her dress, so R29 again. I'm just going to go under her collar, down the sides of her dress, and then where the little wiggly part is as well. Then R27. Again. And then R22. And just blend that out, just to get rid of those harsh lines, like so. Not worried if I go over our buttons too much, or the frill at the bottom, because I'm going to cover those over anyway. Okay, you can go back in and add a little bit more if you want it a little bit darker. and go back in with one of the darker colours and then blend it back out like so. Keep going until you're happy with it. I'm quite happy with her, I think. So I think we'll leave her there. Then I'm just going to colour in that bottom section of the dress. So again, just going in with that R29. Then R27. And then R22. Okay. Then I'm going to colour our bow. So again, back with R29. R27. And R22. I am going to glitter our bow so it doesn't really matter about the colouring on there. And then just going to go in with a little bit of C1 and just go over those little frilly kind of parts, the little cuffs, like so. Oh, and I'll do a little collar as well. There we go. Okay. Then I'm going to add a little bit of glitter to her. So I'm just going to bring in my scrap paper again. And I'm going to add a little bit of Winter Wonderland to her cuffs and to the little piping on her. So again, a little bit of glue going over those areas and to a little collar as well. I'm going to cover that in Winter Wonderland. Sparkelicious. There we go. And then I'm going to add a little bit of red poinsettia to her bow. I'm just going to carefully go around her bow, like so. A little bit more glue into there. There we go. Okay, and then she's going to go onto our card. So I'll bring in our card again, and I'm going to stick her on with some 3D glue gel. So again, I'm just going to add a little blob to the bottom, and I'm going to add quite a big blob to the top. And then we'll stick her onto there, like so. Okay, now we're just going to finish off the card. So I'm going to stamp out a sentiment. So I've chosen the Believe in the Magic of Christmas. So I'm just going to take that, and I'm just going to grab in a piece of crystal white pearl card. Okay, I'm just going to dust it over with an anti-static bag, and then I'm going to ink that up using a Wow clear embossing ink pad, like so. Cool. And then bring in that scrap paper again. I'm going to heat that with some polished gold super fine wow powder. And sprinkle that on. And then I'm going to heat that up. I'm just going to take a filler clean and just carefully trim round that. So I just want carefully trim that down. So. Just trimming all the way around. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to bring the card back in, and I'm going to stick that onto there using a foam pad. I'm just going to stick that into the top corner, like so. Just shimmy her down a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to add a pearl to each of our buttons from our lovely candy bling box. I'm going to take the yellow pearls. I'm just going to take out 3 of those, like so. We'll just add 1 of those to each of our buttons. Then I'm going to take 2 little candy canes. 2 multicoloured ones this time. And I'm just going to tuck them in behind her, behind the snow. So again, just applying a little bit of glue to those. And then carefully tucking them in. Like so. Don't worry if you can see some of that glue, because it is going to dry clear anyway. There we go. Like so. Okay, and then finally, last thing to finish off our card. Oh, sorry, I've forgotten something else. So 2 things to finish off. So I'm just going to tip out some of our sparkling stars. And I'm just going to add those into the background, just a few. Just to look like a starry sky. So again, just some dots of PVA, and then just carefully picking up those little stars and dropping them on. Okay, now the last thing to finish off the card, what I have done is I've taken 2 stars and I've cut those from Kraft card using our basic star nesting dies. The smallest star in the set, I've cut that from Kraft card to create 2 little stars. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully use some tweezers to hold these, is I'm going to cover these in glue. So again, in our PVA glue, I'm going to cover them. I'm just going to carefully try and hold that right at the edge. No, that didn't work, did it? Like so. And then I'm going to cover that in our brand new Stardust Gold Sparkelicious glitters. These are just stunning. I'm going to pop that to the side. And then I'm going to do the same with the other star. Like so. And then pop that to the side as well. And pop that glitter back into there. And I'm going to add these to the tops of the tree. So I'm going to use a little bit of 3D glue gel. And I'm just going to carefully add a little blob to the top of the trees. And then, if I can, I'm going to carefully, again, it would be a great idea to leave these to dry first, but we've managed. Just going to pick those up and add those to the top of our tree, and that would then be your finished card. Okay, so it's such a lovely, wintry, joyful scene. So thank you for watching today. I really hope you've enjoyed this demo. As always, everything's available to buy on www.chloescreativecards.co.uk, and everything will be listed in the product description below. Thanks for watching. Bye.